on to our next session here at the startup stage, I think it's increasingly becoming evident that creating a seamless customer experience can be a differentiator in a market as competitive as the retail space in India. We've seen D2C upstarts increasingly augmenting their retail presence to make their presence much closer to their consumers. And at the same time, we've seen established incumbents going all out, leaving no stone unturned in creating a seamless online experience for their customers. Our panel for the next session, Clicks to Bricks, the new playbook for omnichannel success, are among the leaders that are championing this transition. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming on stage Aditya Todi, CFO of Giva, Ashish Jhina, co-founder of Jumbotail, Ravi Teja Palla, CBO of Urban Ladder, Krishnan Venkateswaran, SVP and Chief Digital and Information Officer, Titan Company Limited, with Sagar Saxena, VP of Account Management at Razorpay, to moderate this panel discussion. Big round of applause, folks.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And good afternoon, everyone. I think the last session literally set the stage on fire. So we'll try and keep the momentum going. And I think there are a lot of D2C company founders, startup founders, which are there in the audience. So I jump straight to it and would love to maybe ask the very obvious question, which is around whether we need, omni-channel or not. I mean, is it something which is really required? Do we really need that? And maybe I'll throw the ball to Krishnan to start. Whether we need omni-channel or, multi-channel or anything is fine.
So the title says clicks to bricks, but as you all know, the journey has been the reverse. We are a 40-year-old company and we have been bricks for decades before the clicks technology itself came into existence. But I can actually take the next several minutes and probably most of the session in describing why omnichannel is important. But I will take a couple of examples. So you probably know that the Tanishq brand is part of Titan. And many of almost all our most intricate and beautiful and obviously higher priced jewelry products have to be touched, felt, and experienced in person. At the same time, digital discovery is a no-brainer now. We don't even need to discuss it. So we have thousands of customers who visit our website, discover what they like, find out the nearest store, request a call back, land up in the store. I mean, we have a serious percentage of our revenue coming in through digitally influenced omnichannel. So I'll just leave that example on the table to illustrate why it is important. But again, omnichannel as a set of technologies is also becoming all-pervasive. So for example, while the customer is in the store, can we actually create that combination of tech and touch, which is what we refer to internally. We don't call it clicks and bricks. We call it tech and touch. So a salesperson engaging with a customer, how can she make use of technology very unobtrusively so that the experience is still perfect, but technology aided? And that's where AI comes in. I'm sure we'll find time to discuss. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll probably find time to discuss this as well. Maybe I'll throw the ball to Ravi. Is it really, required, omni-channel, or, I mean, what's your take on it?
I think it's not an option anymore, right? Customers want to experience the brand online, right? They want to discover the brand online, right? But for a discretionary product, they would want to experience it first time. And the brand experience is well within the retail experience. At Urban Ladder, as in we were digitally native. After a certain price point. And also the brand experience is also critical. We don't call our store team members salespeople. We call them design consultants because that is what the customers wants to experience as such.
Actually, very interestingly, I think similar journey is there with Giva as well, Aditya, that it was an online brand and then you ventured into the offline space. So how important is the omni-channel experience maybe for Giva?
Yeah, I think, it's where your customer pushes you to be, right? So if your customer demands are such that it requires an omni-channel strategy, you will have to invariably focus there. You can't ignore it. But at the same time, I think it's a word which gets thrown around a lot. It becomes really, really important that as an organization, if you really want to go there to the omni-channel world, you actually set up your systems really, really well, and you do not do it half-heartedly, because then the objective of meeting your customer requirement would not be fulfilled, and probably you will end up frustrating your customers more. So, it's really important while we look at it, but we look at it, in a wholehearted manner.
That's a very important point, and we'll probably circle back on the customer aspect. But Ashish, I think I want to come to you with with maybe a different mindset. You are actually not just not just yourself, but maybe you're enabling other companies with say the J24 initiative. How is this entire thing being played from your perspective? How do you see the omni-channel experience really creating an impact? And is it really required maybe, say, in this space? Because obviously all the other gentlemen, they are actually coming in, say, from from the point of view that, these are maybe luxury products, or maybe average ticket size is much higher, and people would want to maybe look and feel a product before they are purchasing some furniture. But what about, Jumbotail? Is it something that you feel would be important even for, from a J24 or a Jumbotail perspective?
So the short answer is yes. I wouldn't be here otherwise. But I think maybe just as a little bit of context about what we do. So, Jumbotail is India's leading B2B marketplace, e-commerce marketplace for kiranas. We have about 150,000 kiranas across 10 urban clusters, which we connect to 2,000 brands, and then we solve for payment, credit, delivery, warehousing, logistics, everything, right? But we've always started with the belief that the kirana store itself will need to evolve to meet the needs of the modern consumer. Needs for convenience, needs for more variety, a better buying experience, are universal trends that are happening all across, be it for more considered purchases like the other panelists on this group are, as well as for the day-to-day grocery buying transaction. So we have a network of entrepreneur-run stores called J24. It's a 100-store network in Bangalore, where this is a new modern convenience grocery store, which is omni-channel by design. And we talk about omni-channel almost as if it's a new thing. If you really think about the original kirana experience as well, right? The fact that 25-30% of many kiranas orders even today, before all the technology came into play, come from somebody, calling the person saying, "Bhaiya, ye bhej dijiye." Now, we don't necessarily look at that as omni-channel, but if you really break it down and say, okay, when's the information flow is happening remotely, if tomorrow you talked about, you talked into a device and magically translated that into an order, suddenly everybody will be like, wow, this is omni-channel. But in reality, this is a behavior that already exists. Our belief is life is only going to make this more inevitable. And J24 is built from scratch, where we provide a series of services for retailers as well as brands to actually operate in this new world, which actually doesn't look very dramatically different from the old world. Just the mechanisms by which you're doing it are different.
Yeah, the means have changed. And maybe, Ashish, I think Aditya kind of spoke about, what the consumer would want. So maybe I'd want to touch base on that front from your perspective. Do you think that, consumer wants more and more, and, these days, are there any trends that you're seeing that these are the things that consumers are looking at from your perspective?
I think universally, with the advent of social media, with the advent of technology, one of the things that's happened is, irrespective of how much money in your pocket, right, the awareness of a different world where other people have access to products, also increasing, purchasing power to a certain extent, larger workforce participation of women. I think these are factors that are fundamentally transforming the nature of consumption, right? And that is ubiquitous across no matter how much money you have. So we go after a cohort of customers across J24, across Jumbotail, of family household incomes of between 5 lakhs and 15 lakhs in all urban clusters. So we are talking about 350, 400 million urban consumers who desire more, have limited means, but also have much larger, much larger aspirations in terms of what they want to consume. And therefore, the need for convenience, the need for variety, a need for a better buying experience, the need for speed are ubiquitous. You see this at the top of the socioeconomic spectrum in terms of what we're seeing with quick commerce, but quick commerce has constraints in terms of unit economics of a certain ticket size. Below 500-600, it's tough to make money. But if you look at the vast majority of buying behavior, we have a lot of POS data across vast numbers of retail stores. The average ticket in a kirana store, no matter what type of community you're talking about, is 80 to 100 rupees.
Yep.
Our belief is that while a lot of discovery, a lot of payment, a lot of behaviors will transform through the advent of digital channels, but in many cases, because of the constraints on the unit economics, and if you really want to do this at massive scale, the fulfillment, a lot of that fulfillment will continue to happen in store. What you will see is, if you think about a transaction, right? It's the information flow, there's a, material flow. Information is pricing, availability, assortment, etc. There's the material flow, which is, actually transacting with the product. And the third one is the financial flow, which you guys know a little bit about, right? So our belief is, those will now not necessarily be monolithic, right? Not everything will be done digitally or not everything will be done physically. It will be a mix and match of a lot of different things. And depending on who your customer is and the product that you're serving and how much money is actually available in the value chain, that will look very, very different. And therefore, omnichannel is an inevitability. If you want to serve large numbers of people, it has to happen.
Yeah, actually, on the consumer front, I'll maybe come to you, Krishnan. See, Titan has a lot of variety of consumers because, there is one which is on the eyewear side, one obviously on the jewelry side. So what do you think are the things that consumers want, from an omni-channel experience or a purchase experience point of view?
Before I start, I'll just probably reinforce your point. So I live in a housing society which actually created space for a shop inside the complex. And so you have the likes of Swiggy delivering, but you also have so many of our co-residents patronizing the guy, and he's doing extremely well. So I'm actually happy to see both happening right there. So obviously there's a lot of space for every model. So coming to your question, now we have a fairly staggering variety of businesses if you look at it. On the one hand, there is the extreme pleasure of buying jewelry. On the other hand, the not so pleasurable experience of having to measure yourself for a pair of prescription lenses, right? Chashma is not a nice thing to wear. So we are all quasi-medical on the one hand and delivering sheer sensory pleasure on the other hand. So obviously when consumers come to us, they know the context in which they're coming. And so therefore it's for us to design to that context. And so an eye care store has to look beautiful, modern, but certainly functional, right? Whereas a jewelry store should look very aesthetic. At the same time, there are universal expectations of engagement, efficiency, product knowledge. All these things are absolutely common. So we have been at this for long enough to know what elements are common across divisions and products and what are unique. And so therefore we tailor those experiences accordingly. And with continuous customer feedback, we keep improving. But one important thing we have done in the company is to have one customer ID and one loyalty program. So we are able to do things like, let's say a customer walks into the jewelry store. The salesperson looks up the CRM and probably sees that 2 or 3 weeks ago, our customer has visited the eye care store and got herself a new pair of prescription glasses. So the conversation might start with, "Aapka chashma theek hai na? I hope your experience of wearing is perfectly fine. And if not, then I'm happy to raise a request for you." It has happened and customers love it. The fact that we are able to ask a question in a jewelry store about the pair of spectacles that she has just bought. So creating these experiences is obviously, imagination is the limit. And we do have the platform to be able to launch them fairly quickly, but more a case of very interesting use case discovery. And that journey continues.
Actually, very interesting thing about maybe personalization when we are actually talking about this, even the loyalty bit, something that we also kind of experience quite heavily with brands. And maybe I'll come to Ravi for this one. Obviously, from a consumer behavior point of view, I mean, you kind of talked about that obviously consumers would want to see it, experience it. Do you feel that there are, enough and more things to it? I realize that, the average ticket size for furniture is super high. Obviously affordability or maybe some other aspects would also be super important. So want to know your perspective on what would, what are the things that you feel consumers are wanting these days from the omni-channel kind of experience?
Maybe I'll just answer overall, right? I think three trends that we have seen as a national brand in furniture. One, that tier 2 cities, of course, have been spending more, for sure. I think everybody's speaking about it. But we have seen the numbers as well, right? As in cities like Goa, Lucknow, etc. There's 30-40% growth in these segments. Two, social media or influencer-based or even simple content-based on YouTube is where the brands are being discovered across the country. It is not just in the metros, etc. This is focused. It's across the country where you are mostly discovered at. Content driven is something that is very critical that is present. Three is that we have seen premiumization as well, right? There is all segments. It is not a simple bed or even a coffee table, etc. There is the tendency for people to live a pleasurable life, right? As in they're looking, maybe as in case coffee table was worth 10,000 on average. Now it has moved to about 15,000, right? That is what we have been seeing in the market as well.
Yeah, that's also a very important thing that we thrive on it just because when the payment volume increases, our commission increases. So we thrive on it. That's also one thing. I'll come to Aditya. And Aditya, maybe we'll, we understood that obviously there are, some consumer trends and, we kind of got the most of those. I would want to touch base on the innovation side of things that Giva has been doing to capture on a lot of these consumer needs or sort of trends which are emerging, and maybe we can touch base on the experience front and take from there.
Sure. So at Giva, obviously we have close to 200 stores and a fairly large customer base. So from a tech perspective, I think it becomes really, really important that we give a seamless experience to the customer. I think we have been leveraging AI to help us, from that perspective. I'll just give you a couple of examples, right? So if a customer comes to our app and browses certain products, right? When he or she goes to the stores, our store staff exactly knows what kind of products is the customer looking at and what is the product that we should show for trial and for experience of the customer, right? Which kind of makes the buying decision a little easier for the customer, right? So that level of personalization is something that we are driving. Obviously, there are regular omni-channel things like, pay online, pick up from store, your return, refund. So all of those, tech-related initiatives that we are trying to do. And it is really helping us, in terms of wowing our customer. But while we do that, I think it is also very important that we take care of expectation versus reality of the customer. A lot of times what happens is the customer expectation may be X, but while the customer comes to the store, the experience may be very, very difficult. I'll give you a very simple example of it. Having one single source of truth for your inventory, right? So customer place an order, maybe waiting to go to the store to collect the inventory. By the time he reaches the store, the inventory is not there, right? So that's not something that you want to do to your customer. Similarly, training of your staff at the store is really, really important. The staff should know how to handle, an online order, getting delivered at store versus, a walk-in customer. Third is your customer experience team, your customer services team. They should also be tuned, through AI, etc., so that, even if the customer says a hi, your AI bot should be able to respond to queries faster, should know what could be a customer, a concern for which, a reach has been made. I think those aspects are something that we are working at Giva, and it is really, really helping us a lot.
Great one. I wanted to touch base on, the innovation part with you, Ashish. Specifically, when we talk about omnichannel, there is something which is, meeting the eye, and there is something which is happening at the back office. So want to understand, what kind of goes within in terms of innovations that you have to do, behind the scenes to actually make it all happen. And since you're basically empowering the other, kirana stores or rather owners to actually operate fairly seamlessly. So maybe if you can talk about those innovations, I think a lot would be, relevant for people.
So I think one challenge in the way that we're building this is that we are not trying to do everything ourselves, right? Our belief is that our motto is, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, Jai Dukwan, right? And we fundamentally believe that the future of modern retail in India is going to be a distributed future where individual entrepreneurs tied together by services provided by people like us and people like you, right? Will allow this cohort of retailers who intimately understand their consumers, operate at an incredible cost structure, to leapfrog into a new world, which will actually set the example for, just to be clear, right? 4.5 to 5 billion people in this world live in economies which have similar trade structures to India. So I think this is a massive opportunity for India to really leapfrog and show what's possible on, the future of retail and especially on consumption categories like food and grocery, right? All of Africa, large parts of Latin America will eventually, my belief is, follow the examples that we create here. But what makes this difficult and challenging but also interesting is that you're not trying to do all of this yourself. You're working with an entrepreneur who has a point of view, wants help, but does not want to be dictated to, and you cannot force anything on them, right? And therefore, a lot of the work that we do on the back end is really allowing and thinking on behalf of the retailer and saying, what are the pieces that would be valuable to them, which you cannot say contractually have to be forced on them, right? So, for example, understanding the life of the retailer and saying, what are the biggest concerns? When you're when you're running your own store, right? You have no idea. You'll know a little bit about yourself. You don't really, and this is where, omnichannel to me is not just about online, offline. It is actually physical and digital, right? Because a lot of things are happening in the physical world that do not leave a digital footprint, and as a result, your ability to learn across long periods of time is largely based on intuition, which is not always great, right? Yeah. It also creates challenges for new people who do not have the benefit of long periods of, having struggled to make that happen, and that becomes even more challenging in a world that is changing very quickly, where what worked a few months or years ago may not necessarily work in the future. So you're creating systems that can take this data in the physical world, be it in the supply chain, be it in the store, be it what consumers are looking for, make it available in a synthesized form to individual entrepreneurs who don't necessarily want to be told, but have a lot of concerns. Like, for example, I want to increase sales by 20% over the next 3 months. What do I do, right? It's very difficult for you to do that. It's hard enough to do that in the stores that you're doing it. Now imagine doing it in a place where you don't always understand and you can't always dictate to them because it's not your staff. It is an entrepreneur with pride who actually is operating, right? So some of the things that we're working on are taking that information. We're very excited about voice, right? We're thinking about agents that help on individual retailers. Why should, let's say, the access to, large batteries of, category managers who can analyze data and, give you insights be restricted to, large format chains, right? They should be available in a democratic fashion. Technology should democratize access to those things. They need to be reliable. They need to constantly learn from what's happening in the store, and that's where we're excited. Obviously, a lot of the stuff that we're doing on the supply chain to reduce cost, to, make sure the right inventories are in the right place. We're moving to actually delivering to, retailers in an hour to 2 hours so that they can actually carry more assortment. Typical retailer carries 500 SKUs. Our belief is they need to carry 1,600 SKUs. How do you make that? You make space in the store by reducing the amount of inventory that they have to hold. So there's a lot of stuff happening in the back end. But our belief of what will actually transform this ecosystem is essentially agents that allow retailers to essentially have somebody to talk to and say, मुझे ये करना है, मेरी दुकान में आज, सेल नहीं आ रही, कुछ प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है. And it may be, यार बारिश हो गई है बहुत सारे लोगों में, and many people in this area are not actually facing the same problem, or this is peculiar to you, and here are a few suggestions of what you can do.
That you can do, yeah. Actually, couple of interesting points, and maybe I'll quickly try and go to Ravi with the same notion, because when we talk about furniture, SKUs in a store would make it very difficult for your inventory to get sold otherwise. So it's a very interesting thing, or rather a problem, that you actually have to make sure that people get the look and feel of it. But at the same time, how do you maximize, sales at the end of days? So if you care to elaborate on that plan.
Right. So the traditional brick and mortar in furniture was, you would see a three-floored store where whatever is seen is to be sold, right? I think the first problem that we had to solve is to how do we integrate this experience for the customer. We had a completely online experience before that, and we had a store that we had to set up. So once we looked to set up a store, we wanted to set up a store which is about 3,000 square feet, right? A 3,000 square feet store would have about 1/4 of the inventory that a three-floored store have. The idea is to have design consultants who are able to make the customer go through the online catalog on an iPad, suppose, and have an AR capability, right? All our products are AR capable. Even in your home, you can see the product on your phone through AR. Even the store, as in the store teams helps you do that. Second is that to have last mile customization for the customer, wherein it's not true customization as such, but because we have constructed our products in such a way that it seems to you it is customized for you, but we have the product as a made-to-stock product. So these are few things that we have been trying to do to reduce our store space. We do the same amount of revenue as a three-floored store at our stores, but we have lesser rentals, lesser store teams, and all those benefits that come out of that.
Yeah, saves cost as well. And Krishnan, I would want to come to you because most of the innovation that we've talked about is maybe heavy on the physical side of things. But Ravi did speak about maybe AR, and I know that virtual try-ons is like a big thing for Titan. So do you want to talk about more on the innovation front, specifically what goes behind the scene, which a lot of people are aware of? And maybe some of those are also, on the scenes, like the virtual try-ons.
Cool. So I can see the amount of time that's left, so I'll probably give one example. So as you know, Titan, we are not just a retailer, but we design and manufacture most of our own products. In fact, I think it's only the watches division, Helios, that we sell other manufacturers' products. Otherwise, everything is our own. And I'll give one example from eye care. Only one wearing spectacles here. I'm actually quite happy that I don't see too many spectacle wearers here, right? Very frankly.
There are a couple, though.
There are, right? And at least a few of you must be wearing progressive lenses. And there is something called fitting height, which has to be measured accurately. And the equipment that exists for auto measuring it is seriously expensive. Not for a country like India. It's all European grade pricing. And what we have done recently, and it's already live in several Bangalore stores, we just take a clean photo of you wearing the frame that you have selected and an open source Vision AI library we have been able to leverage to be able to calculate the fitting height and pupillary distance down to, I think, plus minus 1 millimeter, which is absolutely accurate. So this is an example which I'd like to offer as something which has actually improved the delivery of a medical service. So eye care is quasi-medical. Optometry is a branch of medicine as such. And to be able to do this accurately is one example of where AI can lead at the national level. And I think almost every annual checkup provider now provides an AI summary along with your report, right? You get the PDF, click, and very well written, obviously, with generative AI summary, which is actually quite accurate. If you've tried, for example, a provider like Tata 1mg or many others, you will see that the summary is a very good reflection of the report.
Actually, since you mentioned about the time, I'd probably try and, maybe ask the last question. What is that one, mistake that you feel, founders usually do while they're actually planning for, making an omni-channel business? Anyone who would want to take a stab at it?
I would take it as in we had made a couple of mistakes as in at Urban Ladders. Maybe one is to not to place your retail stores as a channel. Try to go into markets where other retail brick and mortar stores are already present, it is not really necessary. It is better to be closer to the customer, who's the online customer who loved your brand already. It is not just a channel that you need to focus on, right? It is not a revenue channel that is going to get activated when you enter from online to offline or offline to online. It is more about an experience that you are going to consistently provide your customer. Once that consistency is broken, the customer will see your offline channel as a different brand and your online channel as a different brand altogether. So that is a mistake that you should avoid completely.
Yeah, actually, a lot of pointers are covered by Ravi. Krishnan, you want to add more?
So, given that the Kumbh Mela is also on, I would talk about immersion actually in Omnichannel as our goal, right? Obviously, immersion depending on the product, but virtual try-on is frankly just the beginning, right? And we are actually looking at whether we can create a VR experience of our stores. We've not quite got there yet, but a customer sitting at home should be able to walk through one of our Zoya luxury stores and actually see the merchandise as if she's there, even before visiting. And that's just one of the experiences that we can provide. So for me, omnichannel is immersion.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I think Ashish has, or maybe Aditya.
Yeah, so just to add to that also, when we decide to go the omni-channel route, I think it becomes also very important how we do the store selection. Having the right pin code set where your online customers are and trying to geolocate the right store area becomes really, really important, because those are your first, walkers to the store, right? People who have been buying online from you. Those are the ones, who will probably walk in first in your stores. So I think that becomes really, really important, that you do the right store selection.
Otherwise it'll all go in vain, like even Ravi was mentioning about this one. Ashish, you want to add more?
Just 2 quick points. I think one, the first problem is when you think about online channel, offline channel as 2 different things. If the consumer is where you need to start backwards and say, what's the experience? And then from an organization design perspective, if you have 2 people who own this P&L, you're going to have a problem, because they will keep trying to, make sure that
There will be a push and pull.
So the P&Ls need to aggregate. You need to start from ground up, right? If you don't start thinking as my consumer has a journey that will be digital and physical, and there will be a combination of those things, rather than there's an online journey, there's an offline journey, and I have to figure out a way from one to the other to move the person, it creates a massive issue.
Well said, actually, that this is what, startup founders usually make mistakes about, that, this is the person who's the online person, this is the person who's the offline person. So I think there are a lot of, good insights that we could drive. Hopefully you folks will be able to get, more closer to the success playbook for omni-channel businesses. And thank you so much, everyone. Unfortunately, we can't take audience questions because we are out of time, but thank you so much for doing this, and we can just have a quick picture before we leave. Thank you.